Where was I on 9/11? Often people will ask me, when is it a safe time to go to Israel? Anytime. I'll connect the dots. I was 24 years old. I was working as an actor in New York City.
Millions of people. I only felt more and more alone.
Next.
I got into an off-Broadway show and went touring around the country. And when I got back, I had 1 credit on my resume and was exhausted. And I remember praying to God a lot at that time and saying things like, is this what you really want from me? Standing in lines that go around the building of MTW. I asked God, just straight up, is this the rest of my life? And all of a sudden my pager went off, because back in 2001, that's what we had. And my friend Rebecca called me. Now, who's Rebecca? Rebecca is this one over here. We went on a trip to Israel together and we visited 8 concentration camps on this amazing tour back in college. You don't forget a friend like that. Look at her, how cute she is. She had just gone to Israel and come back and was doing this thing called Shabbat. And I was like, what's that? So she invites me over. I'm standing outside of her apartment. Rebecca, can you hear me? She won't buzz me in. She's not using her landline phone, because we didn't have cell phones back then. So then I really wanted to get in, because what you can't have, you really want. Asking everybody, do you know Rebecca? Do you know Rebecca? Finally, this guy in a suit takes me upstairs to the 3rd floor. I open the door. It's already like ajar, and I see this L-shaped table of people between the ages of, I'd say, 20 and 35 having Shabbat dinner together.
Sex on Friday night is a mitzvah.
I don't remember the last time I had a more than 1 course meal. This is awesome.
This is what we do every Shabbos.
They're the things that I thought about Orthodox Jews, that everyone would have BO and they would wear black hats, even the women. There'd be no joy. People would just be eating, talking to themselves, and then leave. It looked like a frat party without the booze. So joy-filled. I was like, what's going on? And everybody there seemed really interesting. I could ask them questions about pop culture. They were smart. They were interesting. Well, I didn't think Orthodox women were allowed to sing. It was amazing. Met this amazing couple named Saul and Marianne, who happened to be dating at the time. They told me about this retreat happening in a couple of weeks in Florida. Oh, but is it like a cult? Like, what is this? Do you have to pay a lot of money? They're like, no, just call the number. I'm like, Saturday sundown is the end of Shabbat, but call Saturday night, Sunday morning, you'll get someone on the phone. I'm like, people work on Sunday? Orthodox Jews work on Sunday. Funny enough, it happens to have the name of a girl that I went to high school with on the flyer. And I'm like, whoa, that would be so weird if that was the same girl, but there's no way, because it's gotta be out of Jerusalem. She says, no, there's actually an office in Boca Raton, Florida. Aren't you from Boca? I said, yeah. So there's an office in Jerusalem, New York City, and Boca Raton, Florida. Okay, great. I grew up in Boca. I don't remember much Jewish happening at all. I mean, there was a very small group of conservative Jews that had this synagogue that I went to for 9 months. A horrible experience for me, because I didn't understand any Hebrew. They do retreats, and she said, no, it's a completely different group. It's new. It's called Israelite. And I was like, what's Israelite? Well, I look at this flyer and I'm thinking about how much fun I had that Friday night. Sunday morning, and you know what? I pick up the phone. It happens to be the same girl that I went to high school with. Now, she's not there, but I ask about her and they're like, yeah, she's from here. She went to Spanish River High School, which is where I went for a year. I was blown away. I already knew that there was something going on in the universe telling me to keep calling this number. It says, do you teach improv? You mentioned you're an actress. I said, yeah. This is right now at this place called the Upright Citizens Brigade. Maybe you've heard of it. He's like, no, I have no idea what that is. I said, well, it's a small, cool improv school. And my friend Danielle from high school told me to join. And I love it. And there's amazing people performing there. Like, have you heard of this woman, Tina Fey? She's a writer for SNL. And he's like, I don't know what that is. And I'm like, great. You find a way to get here, you'll get the whole retreat for free. I'm like, free food for 5 days in the lap of a luxurious campsite? Of course I'll go. For me, that was like the Ritz. Get on this white van, and I'm terrified because I'm like, oh God, if I get on this white van, will I have a way home? I called my sister from a payphone. She was in school about 4-hour drive up from where I was. So I feel a little bit safer knowing that she at least knows where I am. And I teach this improv class, and all of a sudden, this rabbi comes on the scene. His name is Rabbi Aaron. That's him. And he is so sweet and so funny. And the first words out of his mouth are, I don't believe in God. I'm like, an atheist rabbi? That's so cool. He says, no, I'm not an atheist. I believe in Hashem. Do you know what Hashem is? And I'm like, what's Hashem? He starts saying the yud and the hey and the vav and the hey, and it's like these 4 letters, but it means Adonai, but it actually means something else. The compassionate God. I'm like, what? This is no, this must be like something else. To go into these Hasidic stories, and he starts to talk about his life and how he grew up an actor and was in a band and had a big afro and did all these things to try to find God, and he loved concerts, but it was when he started studying Torah that he actually found his way to God. And I was like, wait, what? I studied Judaism in college. I studied comparative religion classes, and all I learned was that Judaism and Christianity and Islam are all anti-women and anti-gay, and it's horrible and it's misogynistic, and there's nothing good about organized religion, and I just came here honestly for the free food. And then we had a private conversation, and I asked him a million questions about female reproductive rights, about sex, about what Judaism says about love, what it means to be in love. And we must have talked for 3 hours, and I learned so much in such a short amount of time. And I thought, I want to go to Israel and I want to study for myself what it says in the Hebrew. Because when I was in college, I read all these books, some by Jews, some by non-Jews, telling me what Judaism said, but it was never in Hebrew. It was just their interpretation of what the Hebrew said. And then all these proofs why I should not even study it, because it's not even worth talking about, because there are some things that are just not even worth having a conversation about, which is why I wrote a show called Messianic Moments and Cosmic Conversations 20 years later, because it's important to have conversations about things that you don't understand, right? Not just keep blocking them out, but like talk about them and like pull out all the sources from it and like really try to get your head around what it actually is instead of what someone tells you what it is. At that moment, I prayed to God and I said, please send me to Israel. And someone must have heard me, because there was this guy named Steve who came over to me with a business card and he said, would you like to go to Israel? And I was like, yes, I would. And he said, okay, well, call me when you get back to New York. And I was like, who are you? Because like, I don't trust guys. I'm like, oh, he clearly wants something from me. When I got back to New York, someone had given him my phone number without my permission. And he called me and he said, hi, I have someone on the line who'd like to send you to Israel. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, I have this amazing donor who would like to send you to Israel for free. And I was like, no, thank you. And I hung up. And then they called me back again. And he said, this is the last time I'm going to call you. Would you like to go to Israel or not? And I said, yes, I would. But if you're going to send me, then I'm going to send you a fax, because that was the only way I could communicate, because I still wasn't good at email yet. And I sent this man a fax. And in the fax, it said the following: I will not have 10 children. I will not shave my hair. I will not cover my hair. I will not wear skirts all the time. I will not have 10 children. I will not get married to the person that you set me up with. And I will not owe you a dime of what you're giving me. If this is a true scholarship, I'm going to take it as a scholarship and I will not pay you back. Do you understand? And there will be no interest. And he signed it. At the very bottom, I said, and you also have to send my sister too, because she's thinking of going to Israel, because she came to rescue me from this retreat, and she got sucked in. We're both like interested in going to Israel, and also her boyfriend too, because he'd really like to go. And so this very kind man, who I would only meet a year later face to face, there was no internet, there was no Zoom, there was no LexisNexis. I couldn't even picture what he looked like. He interviewed both my sister and her boyfriend at the time, and he sent the 3 of us on a plane June 4th, 2001 to Israel. And before I got on the plane, my parents both, individually, because they were divorced, both begged me not to go to Israel. There are bombings every day, Barbara. What are you doing, Barbara? Don't get on the plane, Barbara. You're so stupid. Don't do this. You have a good job temping at the World Trade Center. I said, well, Mom and Dad, I am not feeling so good about myself and my choices, and I feel fat. I really felt inspired at that retreat, and I want to learn more about what my purpose is here. And maybe I'll only go for a couple of weeks, but I gotta try, because when else am I gonna get this huge scholarship? And yeah, I know there's bombings every day, but things can happen here too. And they both were so mad that I had just learned this one commandment, which was honor thy mother and father and keep Shabbat. It's more important than honoring your parents. As my dad once said to me, Barb, get in the car, it's 100 degrees outside. And I said, no, I can't, it's Shabbat. And we had this big fight, and he said, I'm your father, you have to do what I say. And I say, well, actually, there's, one of the big 10 commandments is that I have to honor the Sabbath. And it's just a little bit more important than you and Mom, although you guys are important. I said, I feel like I'm being called to Israel and I have to go. And so myself, my sister, and her boyfriend at the time got on a plane and we went to Israel. As we were driving to get to the airport, on the ticker 2001 24-hour news source in Times Square, it said there was a bombing at the Dolphinarium, which was in Tel Aviv, an hour drive from where we were, but still 16 people were injured and they weren't sure what the death count was. And I remember getting on that plane so scared.
Went to Israel in the middle of a war.
But as soon as I got to Israel,
This is one of my favorite places in Svat.
I felt like I was home. I felt like I would make these friends for life. Joy that I never felt before. Very simple life at the time. In 2001, there were bombings every day. They stopped something like 50 terror attacks a day in Jerusalem. We basically went to yeshiva, the building, and we'd come home and we'd have parties in the dorms. And it was all girls. It was so fun. On 9/11, I took my dance class after school and I walked down the street with my sister to a cell phone store to buy our first cell phones. And it was 4 p.m. when we arrived. And I remember purchasing my Harry Potter cell phone. It had like a flat face. It wasn't even a flip phone. It was a Nokia, just really simple. She got the pink one. I got the blue one, Harry Potter label. And I gave them my credit card and I saw on the TV that the Twin Towers were coming down. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that's so sad. The building's on fire. And Kath said, yeah, that's the World Trade Center. And I said, no, it's not. It's Tel Aviv. And it said World Trade Center, but in my head, I hadn't registered yet. And I felt more safe thinking that it was 45 minutes away in this weird city that I would grow to love, but couldn't wait to get home to safety. I almost fainted. And I came to and I got my phone and I prayed for my whole family, my aunt, my cousin at the time who was pregnant, who I thought, is she okay? Where is she? My aunt, my uncle. I was just wanting to know if they were okay. And I thought what everyone else thought, would I ever go home to see my family again? And I get back to my dorm and I go to sleep somehow. By the grace of God, I went to sleep. We prayed a lot as a yeshiva for the entire world. The whole world was shaken, as those of you who are alive remember. It was a really dark day for the whole world. And at 3 a.m., I sat up in my bed and I thanked God because I realized that it took me that long to realize that had I not gotten on that plane to do this thing and take this free money to learn for the year in Israel and get closer to my soul and what I'm supposed to do here, I could have been there. And I got the message very clear that day that I had a purpose, to be alive and to keep learning this stuff. And I went home to Florida and then I came back for a full year and I studied in yeshiva and I learned so much about myself, about the world, about what our purpose is here as a humankind, as the Jewish people, as a Jewish woman. And I haven't stopped learning. It's been 20 years. And I remember going to the hotel a few days later and I was underground. And I was so humbled to be alive. And here's a picture of Saul and Marion. They came to visit while I was in Israel, and Rebecca too, Celine. These are the people that I'll always be friends with. We experienced so much growth during a time when the world felt like it was crumbling. And I'm still very close with Saul and Marion. That's a picture of us a few years ago. So when a nice couple of friends invites you to go to Israel, you should go.